Episode 97, weighing in with Travis Hartman. I'm B Money, the producer. That over there is the talent, Weekend Trav.
Ooh,
you like that?
I don't know about that.
Okay. Well, Weekend Trav, this is, like I said, episode 97. We're coming to you from Orlando, Florida, because this is the #1 Beards, Bourbon, and Boxing podcast shot in Orlando, Florida, specifically Laureate Park, specifically in a boxing gym on the second floor of said boxing gym in the podcast room, shot on a Sunday or Monday. Today is actually Sunday, and it drops on
Wednesday morning, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
In the world. That is the niche. That is the demographic. Weekend Trav. Episode 97 is all about Canelo Alvarez and Triple G. As that fight is taking place here, not here, but in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena on September 17th. That's Saturday. Main card starting at 8 p.m. Supposed walkouts probably around 11 p.m. on Saturday on DAZN pay-per-view. We want to make sure we clarify that. It's DAZN pay-per-view. So if you have the service, guess what? You're kicking in a little extra to watch this event.
And it'll be worth it. We're all going to pay for it. We will. I know that I will for sure.
This will be the trilogy matchup with these two. Let me grab my pen here. Trilogy matchup between Canelo Alvarez and Triple G. Weekend Trav. We talk about other shenanigans. We talk about all sorts of random stuff and some boxing included in. But this has got to be it. This is the main part of the show. We're going to talk about the meat. But before we do, I wanted to make sure that I wished you a happy 69% day, or weekend, I should say. This weekend commemorates in the year, we are 69% of the way through the calendar year as of this weekend.
What a wonderful stat.
You know, so gentlemen, just allow me to tell you that this is where we're at. This weekend in September. Unfortunately, when this drops on Wednesday, we will be in the 70% range. Yeah. But as of right now, as we record, we are 69% of the way through the year. Nice.
What a stat. You told me that you had a fun stat, and
fact check it.
I appreciate that.
I'm pretty sure I'm right. So, Weekend Trav, that being the case, let's talk about the real stuff. Let's talk about boxing. That's what people tune in for. Our subscriber base, if you have yet to subscribe, do so below. We'll get to all that sort of stuff a little bit later on in the episode. Yes. But let's talk this big-time matchup, Weekend Trav. Canelo Alvarez taking on Triple G, the trilogy fight. Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena, Saturday, September 17th, the DAZN pay-per-view, and go.
Wow. So two things to be noted is that, yes, this is the trilogy. The first one, they ruled a draw. The second one, they ruled a majority decision for Canelo. And then this third one is going to be in the super middleweight division, not the middleweight division. The first two are in the middleweight division. So normally trilogies happen in the same weight class normally, but this one's a little bit different. So Triple G's willing to come up because that dude will fight anybody, anywhere. Another cool thing is that Triple G hasn't lost a fight since 2018, and that was to Canelo Alvarez.
Right.
So all he's done is won. He's 1, 2, 3. 3 of the 4 fights have ended in knockout.
Yeah, there was a poet that once said that all I do is win no matter what.
That's a good poet.
Yeah. Okay, so keep on going.
Yeah, so this is a lot of people think that because Triple G is now 40 years old. But I saw his last fight, and it wasn't like crazy impressive, but he got the guy out of there. So he got the guy out of there in the 9th round. It is what it is. Ryan Murata in Super Arena in Saitama. It was like Japan or something, right? Something crazy like that. Anyway, I like the fight still. Most people are just like, I think it's going to be a close fight again, though. Those two, I don't think either one of those guys blow each other out. However, a lot of people are thinking that Canelo is going to try to knock out Triple G. And I think he is going to try to knock him out. I just don't think he's going to be able to knock him out.
Now, do you think it's just because he's coming off the heels of that loss to Bilal? Is that he has something to prove?
I think not just that. I think he does have something to prove because the first 2 Triple G fights, one, they ruled it a draw. A lot of people thought Triple G won the first when they called it a draw. The second one was super close as well. I had Canelo winning barely, but I think Canelo's going to try to really, really separate himself from that whole fight, because that's the one fight that Canelo had before anybody else. It was really, really close, right? The fight that nobody was really competing with Canelo, except Triple G at that point.
Yeah, I mean, for Triple G's record, these are the only two blemishes on that record. He's 42-1-1, so the one and the draw.
The draw and the one loss, yep.
Both being Canelo. So 37 knockouts for Triple G. If you're not familiar with him, just a casual boxing fan, look it up. Go on YouTube or Rumble, look up some video content. This is a real deal fighter. Yes, 40 years old, but as we've seen with sports medicine, there's a lot of fighters now that can fight into their 40s and even 70s, just like we saw in the heavyweights recently.
Luis Ortiz, King Kong.
Yeah.
So you know what's good is we don't have a fact checker in here right now, but I think that I could probably come close to saying this and being true. Triple G has an 84% KO percentage. I know that number is right, but what I want to say is I think that's got to be one of the highest of any champion right now, not a heavyweight.
Okay.
A non-heavyweight champion, that's got to be up there, because
I'm just going to say you're right.
Insane.
I'm going to say you're right.
And you know, if I get enough people to say that I'm right, then it's right.
Yeah. Yeah, like, that's the way it works nowadays.
Isn't that how it works?
If you get into your echo chamber and somebody tells you, yeah, I agree with you, no, you're right, you get enough people saying that and it becomes a fact.
So I'm going to start recruiting people when we get off of here on our Instagram page, Hagan with Travis Hartman. I'm going to let all of them know that we're going to take a poll, and I need them to vote yes.
Yeah.
That he is the highest KO percentage of any other non-heavyweight fighter.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
And it's going to be right. We are going to petition to get this to be a fact.
I like it. I like it.
Even if it's not.
Yeah, because, I mean, 30% of the time, you're right every time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
Sex Panther.
So this is, and you're right, though, too. The only blemish on Triple G's record is he's 42-1-1. It's a draw and a loss with Canelo Alvarez.
So this is a pretty exciting weekend, Trav. Not only the fact that it's these two studs of these, I guess you can call it one division, but Canelo obviously travels around a little bit. But this is to be the undisputed super middleweight champ of the world as well.
Yep.
So that makes it even more exciting. This was already going to be a massive draw. This is already going to be a big pay-per-view hit. People are going to want to watch this no matter what. Tune in. But now there's gold on the line too. And to me, I like that. That makes it a little more palatable and even more interesting for me as a sports fan.
Yeah. And I think that it's the undisputed title because it's all four of the major titles: IBF, WBA, WBC, and WBO. And Canelo had won that when he beat Caleb Plant, who had the only sole one left, and he won it off of him. And then Canelo, as you all know, he is coming off of a loss to Dimitri Bivol, where he went up to light heavyweight and tried to fight for the WBA Super World Light Heavyweight title, and he lost a decision. So a lot of people think that could play a part in this fight, and I think it could. But I think that great fighters, just like any great athlete, when they have a setback, they usually 9 times out of 10 come back even better.
Well, let's talk mindset then, weekend, Trav, and let's start with Triple G. His mindset going into this fight this weekend. If you're Triple G, where's your headspace?
You know what? I think his headspace is probably good, but I think all of his last fights after the last loss to Canelo, all he's been doing is trying to work his way back up to fight Canelo. He's not cared about anything else. He's wanted that fight back from the day after they made that decision. He's like, I want to fight him again.
Well, you got to imagine that's all he hears about every time he fights.
So I'm wondering in my head, though, as if he's just been so mundane in his head that he's just been waiting so long. He's just getting so impatient now that maybe he does make some mistakes because he's wanted this fight for a while. And fair enough, he deserved it for sure. That's why this fight's happening. This is a deserved trilogy that does need to happen for sure. But I think his headspace is going to be good. He's coming off wins, but I think his wins they've been a little ho-hum because he hasn't had a dance partner like Canelo to get up for. And
there's not many out there like that.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody knows about any of these top fighters, once you get to that level, you need a challenge to get up for. And I'm sorry, but Ryan Murata is not a challenge for Triple G to get up for. He still managed to get up for it and obviously stop the guy, but it's just I don't think he's had a challenge in front of him anywhere near what Canelo was. So his training there's no way his training has been phenomenal leading up to all those fights because he's literally not have a Canelo in front of him.
Right.
But now he does.
So then take me through the headspace, the mindset of where you think Canelo Alvarez is at when it comes into coming into this weekend, this fight. Given everything that we've seen from him, fighting everybody too. I mean, both of these guys fight everybody, but where Canelo has been over the past couple of years, and also hearing the murmurs of the past 2 fights with him. Did he win that one?
Yeah.
And the other one was a draw. Okay, yada,
Yep.
yada. So where is Canelo Alvarez's mind space, his head space at leading into this weekend?
I mean, if you really want to think about it, he's got a lot of baggage in there because he did fight Triple G twice, never once really conclusively beat him in a lot of people's minds. Not mine. I actually think he did win the second one. And then also, not only that, B-Money, he barely beats him, and then he goes, and now his last fight, he lost to Bivol, where he jumped up and tried to dare to be great, and he got knocked down a peg because he lost that fight.
Yeah.
Fair and square, he lost that fight. So his headspace could be a little wishy-washy. However, it could be just the opposite, too, where this is a legacy fight for him. I think he's got a lot to prove. I think he does. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder, and I think that after losing to Bivol, I think now he's like, I got a lot to prove. And you know what? I've said this many times on the show, too. Fans are crazy, and fans only remember the last thing you did, okay? Because I had a friend come up to me and literally tell me, so do you think Canelo's done? And I'm like, he lost to Bivol, who was undefeated, light heavyweight.
Right.
Like, what do you mean? I think Canelo's 32 years old. The guy's in his prime still. I'm like, no, he's not done. So Canelo's hearing those murmurs too. I promise you. There's a lot of people around him that it's in the headlines. You got to read it eventually.
Yeah.
There's people out there like, oh, is Canelo done? Is this? I'm like, listen, the guy's 32 years old. He dared to be great. He turned pro at below 140.
Yeah.
And he went up to 175.
Yep.
And he lost the decision on points. It's not terrible. So I think he's fighting for a lot. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder.
Okay.
And I think he wants to go out there and prove something, but I do think he's got to be careful because Triple G can fight, okay?
Yeah.
And not only can Triple G fight, Triple G's got one of the best chins in boxing. That guy used to spar with heavyweights. He can take a shot.
So
That's why I don't think he's getting knocked out.
So before going to my next question to you with regard to this fight, let me go through some numbers. Let me go through the Vegas numbers for everybody at home. As of right now, as of Sunday, it looks like Canelo Alvarez minus 600 favorite. That's a big favorite. With Triple G being a plus 400. Looks like 10.5 rounds is the line in the sand.
It's going to go the distance.
And that is what Vegas is telling us. And there's other props and stuff like that, but those are the main numbers. It looks like Canelo Alvarez, massive favorite, fight 10.5 rounds out of the 12 weekend Trav. Given that information, given everything you've said, which fighter has the most pressure on them?
I think Canelo does, and I think he invites pressure. Pressure is a privilege, and I think he knows that, and I think he welcomes it. I think he's got a lot of pressure on him because he's a great fighter, and I think he's fighting for legacy. So that's why, yes, I think he's got a massive amount of pressure. Triple G, he's fighting on house money right now because he's 40 years old. If he loses, people are just going to be like, oh, well, he was 40. He's probably about done. So I think he's got the least amount of pressure. He doesn't have much to prove.
You know what you need to make a diamond weekend, Trav?
Pressure.
Yeah, we learned that. I'm just kidding.
So, but it's I like the fight. I like all the things that are going into it. I like the mindset. I like how they've both are coming into this third fight, and they've already kind of set off on their own little trajectory away from each other, and now it's kind of coming back, and I kind of like that. It makes for a nice little, I think, explosion, because this could be Triple G's last hurrah as well. That's why I think he's going into this fight, I think, with the easiest of pressure.
So that was my follow-up question to all of that. Is this one way or another Triple G's last fight?
Well, I think if he wins, no. I think if he wins, I think we could see a fourth fight, because I think it would make sense, because technically it was a draw. Canelo won. If Triple G wins, it's still 1-1 if Triple G wins this, right? You need a fourth fight. So I wouldn't be surprised, and if that happened, I wouldn't be surprised if that fourth fight happened pretty fast this time, within 6 months. So, no, I don't think if he wins, I don't think he retires at all. I think Triple G, he's one of those old-school throwback fighters that this guy, he still looks in good shape.
Well,
he's got that
shape.
baby face, too, and the guy he's a beast.
Yeah.
But to be fair, how accurate do we know as Kazakhstan's birth certificates? Who knows if he's that age either?
Yeah,
we don't know.
Kazakhstan's a weird place. Weekend Trav, if he loses, does he hang up the gloves?
I think he should. I think he should. I think that, and I'm only saying that because he's done such a great career that I don't want to see him lose to anybody else.
Sure.
If he loses to Canelo, right off into the sunset. But you could. His career is a Hall of Fame career. The only people he lost to in his whole career, was Canelo.
Yeah.
He beat everybody else, literally. So I think that, I think he should retire. Or maybe have a going away fight against, a joker. But I think that's dangerous too, because you don't get up for those fights.
I think
So
just be
they're tough.
done with it. And I'm talking real retirement, not Tyson Fury retirement. I'm saying real retirement. If you lose this fight, Triple G, you heard it from Weekend Trav, but you're hearing it from B Money. If you lose this fight, one way or another, if it's a great fight, goes to the decision, or if it's just an overwhelming loss, I say great time to hang him up. Because who else would you want to go out into the sunset fighting against, other than the guy who put the 2 blemishes on your record, and that you gave him one of his draws as well on his record, and it's just been a warfare between the two of you guys when you get in the ring. That's the best way to retire. I would say even stretch to say this as well, Weekend Trav. If I'm Triple G and I win, and maybe because I'm not the boxing competitor, have that spirit, I guess, I might even consider I'm going out on top, and let that be the question mark for everybody for the rest of time. Who would have won the 4th?
If this only was like legacy and just whatever else on that, yes, but they're gonna throw so much money at Triple G if he won that it would be. I would tell him, "You're dumb. Fight again," and then ride off. But there's going to be a lot of money involved in this fight too, obviously. I don't know what the guaranteed purses are, but I know Canelo's has got to be up there. It's got to be over 30 million, because I know that he turned a deal down with DAZN a couple of years ago, and they were paying him like 32 million a fight, and he said, "No, I'm going to go out on my own now." So I'm pretty sure he's making a lot. But back to the fight a little bit. I like this fight because I saw the first 2 fights. Canelo kept getting better. The first fight, they scored it a draw. A lot of people thought he lost. The second fight, he fought massively better. And Triple G didn't fight worse by no means at all. I think he fought the same level that he fought the first fight. It's just Canelo fought a little bit better. Started a little sooner. Actually was bullying Triple G and backing him up, which is actually odd because Triple G usually backs everybody up. So he was backing. So I think we're going to see a similar thing. I think we're going to see even a little bit better of a Canelo. I think he's going to be a little bit busier. He's going to pick up that pressure a little bit because he did get a little confidence and realize that, hey, you know what? I can take Triple G's best punch. Because he did. A couple of those fights, you want to see some replays of some of those fights, some of those punches that Triple G landed on Canelo. I was like, oh my God. And Canelo literally goes, doosh, and like fires right back. And I was like, nobody does that to Triple G. That's why he has like 83% knockout ratio, because his power, it's real. It's not just fluff. It's real.
And you still think and let's say that continues to happen in this fight. We're a few years after that point. Canelo's now, he's not old, but he's 32. Do you think he still sustains the same kind of damage if that's what happens in this fight? Can he still keep pressing forward like he did in the prior?
You mean if they fight again after this one?
No, I'm saying in this fight, if it's a similar situation, can he still eat all that pain, eat all those punches?
I mean, that's what we're going to see, because even though he is only 32, Canelo's had, 57, 59, 60-something pro fights. That is a lot. It's more than Triple G, and Triple G hasn't really been in some wars, and Canelo has been in some really long, brutal fights.
And we're talking not only just a number of fights, but the weight changes and all the stuff that goes into that.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I think the most that affects you the most on weight change is when you come back down, though. And that's when you see a lot of guys like Roy Jones Jr. did it. He went all the way up to heavyweight, and then he came all the way back down to, I think, light heavyweight, which is a big difference. It's like 25 pounds. And that's when he's seen him get knocked out by Antonio Tarver, like knocked out cold. And then later on get knocked out again by Glenn Koff Johnson. So I think Canelo is going to be okay in that realm, because he's only been going up and up. And even though this fight is at 168, he just fought at 175. That's not that big of a fluctuation that I think it's going to be a massive difference on his body. However, do you remember we found out that information that before the Bivol fight, he turned vegan?
Yeah.
So when you start messing around with the chemicals in your body and your diet in your body that you've never touched in a way like that for that many years in your career, maybe we could see something different with his body, and maybe we could see how he doesn't absorb punches as good anymore. Maybe we see him fade a little bit. Maybe it wasn't the vegan diet, because he 100% faded in about the 9th round of that Bivol fight. We're blaming the vegan diet, but maybe it wasn't. Maybe Canelo's slowing down.
I think he was also absorbing a lot of punishment from a guy that was bigger than him.
For sure.
And speaking of, I mean, listen, it's not a big difference, but 2 inches on height, that's a big difference. That can be a big difference.
Oh, with Bivol you're saying, right?
No, I'm saying with Triple G. Triple G is listed as 5'10", whereas Canelo is 5'8".
Yep.
You know, Canelo's always looked smaller than the other guy in the rings with him. But
he's wide now, though. He's just so wide now.
So it's an interesting matchup, ladies and gentlemen, to watch this fight. Even though, yes, odds favorite is Canelo, there's just a lot of storyline to this that makes it very compelling, I should say, to the sports fan, not just boxing fan, but sports fan. Whether or not there could be an upset here, I don't know. I'm not in the upset camp with this one. I think Canelo takes this victory, but we'll do a prediction video later, though.
The odds obviously don't mean crap because Canelo was a massive favorite fighting Bivol.
Yeah.
Upset.
I just think, yeah. This one feels a little different to me, though.
It is different, obviously, because
there wasn't enough respect given to Bivol on that, and there should have been.
They're giving Canelo a lot of respect on this one against Triple G, though, so they must think Triple G is faded.
And it's probably also because they've seen the two in the ring before together. So unless game plans are wildly different, which they won't be.
Yeah, there's no sense in that. You're not going to – these guys have shared the ring for, 24 rounds now.
Yeah.
You're not going to see anything new get thrown in there. If anything, it's just going to be somebody's going to be a little bit busier, but there's not going to be any tricks up the sleeves.
Correct.
These guys are savvy veterans. They don't have these new trick. They're not a new trick pony.
Yeah.
We know what they do. We know what they do.
You're not going to see somebody switching stances. And
exactly.
Crap.
And these guys are going to do what they did last time. It's just they're just trying to do it a little better this time.
Right. Okay. Well, we can Trav. That's this Saturday. Pretty excited for it. It's a good matchup. Once again, DAZN pay-per-view, Canelo Alvarez, Triple G. And that's on September 17th, Saturday. Main card starts at 8 p.m. Walkout for the main event should be around 11 p.m., give or take a little bit. DAZN pay-per-view, okay? And that's for the undisputed super middleweight titles. Mindset's a big deal here going into this fight for both of those guys. I think we can throw out his actual prediction at the end of this week. So be tuned in to the YouTube or the Rumbles and everywhere else that we post. If you have yet to subscribe to our channel or our show, please do so below. Hit the bell icon if you're on YouTube so you're notified when that content drops, when that prediction video drops, and everything else that we put out there as well. And go ahead and like this video while you're at it. We do appreciate it.
Man, I'm looking at the undercard of those fights for the Canelo fight, and it's not really appetizing.
No.
Although there's one fight that I encourage everybody to actually watch is Gabe Rosado versus Ali Akhmedov. Gabe Rosado is always in exciting fights. He's actually the champ, IBF North American Super Middleweight champ. It's a vacant title. It was vacant, I think, when he won it. But anyway, he's a good fighter, and he's always in exciting fights. So I challenge people to actually look for that fight. It's in the super middleweight division, and he's a super fan-friendly fighter. He's a blood and guts type of warrior. So that's the only undercard that it'll be
entertaining one way or another. 8 fights. It'll be entertaining one way or another. So definitely tune in. I think some of it will probably be on normal DAZN if you have that subscription service, but the main card starts at 8 p.m. That's the pay-per-view.
There's another one that I have a little history with is this Austin Williams. He's 11-0 middleweight. His last fight, he knocked out Cordell Booker, who was 17-0. Cordell Booker, I fought him in the pros. Yeah. This dude's a beast, okay? Austin Williams knocked him out in the first round. So that's another a sleeper fight that I would say to watch. You got 2 fights in there, Gabe Rosado and now this Austin Williams fight. That's a sleeper fight. I think that could be fan-friendly, and he could burst onto the scene with something crazy because this guy's got insane knockout power. He's fighting a decent guy, Kieran Conway. So I think that's an interesting fight as well.
So you're telling me I should look at those fights for my addiction I have?
Yes, but
no, I don't have a gambling addiction.
Austin Williams is massive
and
favorite.
Once again, we don't give specific advice when it comes to gambling, and if you feel like you do have a problem, please contact a service or a hotline to discuss that advice with you. We just tell you what's on the internet, folks.
Just have fun.
With regard to it, to have some fun. Weekend Trav. So that's the fight. We're going to do the prediction video later this week, and I think it's time to move on to just an update. The ladies who were supposed to fight over this past weekend in London, because Queen Elizabeth passed away at the ripe old age of 96, they did delay pretty much every sporting event that was tied to London and England, and that included the ladies card there that had Clarissa Shields as well as
Savannah Marshall.
There you go, Savannah Marshall, Michaela Mayer, Alicia Baumgartner. Yeah, so that all got pushed out to, I think, when is that, October?
They're saying tentatively right now, they're saying October 15th.
Yeah, so once again, this gets dragged out, and we have to hear them all complain to one another, blah, 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 as if we don't get that in every other aspect of life.
Some of their trash talking was pretty funny, though.
It could be. But
that back and forth between Michaela Mayer, it's Michaela Mayer, and Baumgartner was pretty funny. The tweets they exchanged.
But
back.
you know what? And we had this conversation a couple days ago. Don't disrespect someone's pay.
Yeah, and Michaela Mayer did that, and I think, and I still believe this, I think that comes back to bite you in the ass later.
Yeah.
I would not comment on somebody's pay, especially you're a woman boxer right now. You're trying to fight for women's pay, and now you're making fun of another woman boxer, calling her a broke B. Like, come on now.
Exactly.
Your trash talking's been funny. Might have crossed the line.
Yeah. Don't talk about the pay, especially in the women's sports things.
Like, they're just fighting for their pay right now. You're making fun of her pay. Well, why don't you give her some of your money then?
See, like when I talk about the WNBA, I'm not making fun. I'm drawing attention to the fact that they make considerably less money because the viewership is so horrible and the attendance is so horrible, and that's why they make such a less amount of money versus the men because, that's where the advertisement dollars flows to the NBA.
Where was that meme at? I think it was, and I think it's true. It said Stephen A. Smith makes $12 million a year. The entire WNBA
like that.
does $12 million a year, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Anyways. So that is updated. That's going to be, I guess, October, November.
They're saying October 15th is the possible date. It's going to be on DAZN still. So we'll see. We'll keep following that. We'll update you on our page for sure. But
we have heavyweight drama, going back and forth between Tyson Fury and Eddie Hearn's camp.
No drama. That fight's set. No?
Did they didn't set a date?
No, they didn't set a date, but they also agreed to terms, which was pretty cool.
Weekend Trav. I've been in this game a long time, in this boxing podcast game, and so have you. We know for a fact.
97 episodes.
Unless you show me the doc with your signature on it, all of it's talk.
Actually, it doesn't mean anything to me until I see him step in the ring.
Until you actually start punching each other.
Yes, because as we've noticed, the UFC just this weekend, they were signing the dotted papers.
Dude.
Chimanov comes in the weight 7.5 pounds more.
It just felt all a little too easy, didn't it?
Yeah.
Them readjusting two main fights on that card last second, and especially with two dudes that were having a lot of internet war with one another. It just felt a little put together.
And 7.5 pounds overweight.
Is a big overweight.
Huge. And they claimed that the doctor said that he was cutting weight and he couldn't cut it anymore. So I'm like, okay, well, if the doctors knew it the day before, why didn't Dana White didn't know? He was just as surprised as anybody too.
Or how about a week out, the camp didn't have an idea?
Yeah,
come on.
That's BS. That's unprofessional. I actually am upset that Dana White even let the Chumanov guy fight. I would not have rematched him. I'd have said, "You're done, buddy. Get out of here."
But
and I'd have paid the other guy and said, "You're not fighting."
But here's the thing. So that gave Diaz a great exit fight from the UFC against
Tony Ferguson.
Tony Ferguson, which is kind of what everyone wanted to see that one anyways. Instead,
I didn't get to watch it, but I talked to some people. They said they thought that Ferguson was winning that fight until the submission.
But that's sometimes what happens with a Diaz fight.
Yeah,
he found a submission, he won it. And you know what? He gets to ride off into the sunset, and it's a little more, shake hands at the end and the post presser and all that stuff. So, it just felt like,
Yeah,
does this feel like it just kind of worked out perfectly?
Yeah, I don't know though, because the before the weigh, I know it was actual weigh-ins, wasn't it? Or the night before they did the presser, and they had to cancel the presser. And Dana White was like, "This is the first time I've ever had to do it because there were some fights different. It wasn't the main event; it was somebody else."
I know, but it
felt weird.
Seems.
But that's the first time he's ever had to do that. He even said he was like, "I don't." He's like, "I'm in shock right now, but we're having to cancel the event or the night, which is that press conference. We're canceling it.
Right.
Nobody can matter because of some stuff in the back.
It felt a little weird, right?" Like,
excuse me.
There's other reasons.
It felt weird.
I feel like there's other reasons for that because they've had big explosions in the back before. Now, I don't know if it would have affected like the timeline of press conferences, stuff like that. But if you remember years ago, Conor McGregor and his camp had a beef with somebody and they threw one of them guardrails into a bus and all sorts of stuff. And there was like potential to get arrested.
That was the oh my gosh, the really good guy he lost to, the Eagle. Was his name?
I don't know.
Oh my God, he retired undefeated.
So really?
Oh, I forgot his
name. You're telling me because there's a little scrap in the background?
Yeah, it was weird. I don't know what was
Something just doesn't feel right about that. But ultimately, I think they did what they do, and they put together a pretty good card. And
they rallied.
The main event for Diaz made more sense, and I think it gave him the opportunity, which he took advantage of, won by submission, his final fight there in the UFC, supposedly, for now. And now maybe moving on to boxing, which... if you fight somebody that's a purist, your stance isn't going to work well.
Jake Paul, I can see that.
We've been talking about that for a while.
I think that actually, if Jake Paul gets past his next fight, which is, when is that? October
15th, isn't it?
No, it's just the end of October. It's like the 29th or something, I think.
Oh, I'll look that up while you talk.
Yeah.
So,
But what I'm saying is, if he gets past that guy, the Spider Silva, I think the Nate Diaz fight makes sense, and I actually think it would sell.
Phoenix, October 29th, yeah. And I could have looked at my papers.
That's when Jake Paul is fighting Anderson Silva. But to be fair, I'm not kidding. I actually think that fight makes sense. It's another good building fight for Jake Paul.
You know what it makes?
And Nate Diaz is going to put up a fight.
I'm going to tell you right now what makes sense for Jake Paul in his career. Who cares if people say you haven't fought a real boxer? Just keep fighting these guys.
Keep making money, bro. Cash
Just
those
make
checks.
your whole career.
Cash those checks.
Your whole career is this.
You know, a guy who ended up being a sideshow but made a whole entire career of his professional boxing career was Butterbean. Eric Eschke. He fought one, I think, 10 or 12 round fight. But other than that, they called him the king of the 4-rounders.
Yeah.
And he went across the country fighting. I think he had like 70 or 80 pro fights, and he was making really good money. He's not making Jake Paul money, but he made a sideshow out of it.
They used him for a little storyline in WWF.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they were trying to do their own little boxing tournament. I remember because I was a kid watching this. I was a teenager watching this. And so they had Butterbean fight the guy who won like the internal championship. Butterbean, and it ended up being a real boxing match at a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Butterbean knocked him out in like the first like 15 seconds.
Dude could punch.
Like legit. Actually, like you never heard of that guy ever again. That one of the things.
Knocked him into another planet.
But Jake Paul, just do that. Who cares if you never have the IBF and WBO and all? Who cares if you never have that gold?
And like I've said from the beginning, he's just building his career right now. I think until he gets to about 10 wins, it doesn't really matter who he fights as long as it sells. Yes, that's what I mean. But he doesn't have to fight.
If you have the better gambling thing that's starting to pick up steam, which
BETR.
We'll talk about that in a second. Between that, the MVP, the promotion company, all these things, you have all this. Then who gives a crap? Just keep fighting these guys.
Dude, he's a showman. He's an entertainer, and I can't fault it.
I don't want to see him once again. The most boring fights for him would have been the real boxers.
Yeah, this is very true.
I want to see him fight some stud up and coming guy that's 10-0? No.
No, because it might hurt him, maybe.
And it's not interesting. It's just not interesting.
I think you're right, man. Like, we're getting into that bracket with him now where it's just like, you know what? Like, Anderson Silva is a good fight.
For those,
it's a very interesting fight.
Yes.
Nate Diaz would be a very platinum. Mike Perry would be. He's
100%.
I got his next 3 opponents lined up right now. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's Anderson Silva who he's fighting.
Yep.
Nate Diaz, if he beats them all, obviously. Yep. Platinum Mike Perry.
Boom.
I got your next. That's for the next year. That'll get him by a year of fights. Right there, you got your cards.
And we're not trying to discredit those at all. Those opponents.
No, not even.
Those are
great fucking
fights.
I just said the F-bomb.
You did. But those are hard fights. Okay. But I'm sorry for all the boxing purists, and we love boxing. Obviously, we have a podcast that talks about
100% purist.
For everyone that complains about Jake Paul and boxing, okay, do you really want to see this guy become a legitimate guy, become a legitimate ranked guy? You want Jake Paul to show up on the rankings somewhere? Seriously? Think of what you're complaining about.
Listen, anytime we've ever talked about Jake Paul here, I haven't put him up there with like the elites, like the Canelos, like even the Ryan Garcias and all. I haven't. Never. We discuss him and who he's fighting. And it deserves to be talked about because the kid's done a great job at marketing because he makes purist boxing programs, either podcasts or TV, talk about him.
Yes.
You have to talk about him because he is doing something and he's captivating.
And it's not just an event with one fight. There is an event with like 6 or 7 other fights, and he does bring in legit fighters in on most of those too. There's some weird fights too, but most of them are legit or working with the Serrano sisters, or at least one of them at this point. Yeah. I mean, listen. Stop complaining about this guy boxing people.
Accept it. Don't watch it.
All of a sudden, do you want him to start stringing together a bunch of boxers, like beating actual boxers and beating guys that they've trained their whole life to do this?
Yeah.
Do you want that to happen because he has the money to pour into his own training program? Yeah. He doesn't have to starve like these guys starve. He doesn't have to sell tickets like these guys sell tickets. He has every advantage right now because of the money flow, and that's fine. I'm not hating on that. Do you want him to become a legitimate boxing superstar? Stop complaining about it. Just let him fight these guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, eventually he's going to have to try that, and then what'll happen will happen. It'll weed himself out. okay, when he does eventually, because he claims that he does intend to do that, I think he's stupid if he does that, in my personal opinion, business-wise, because of the reasons I just said. Do you know how much money he can make? Let's just say those fighters, Anderson Silva, Nate Diaz, and Platinum Mike Perry, let's just say a couple of those fights happen to be really close and a weird decision happens. Boom, get a rematch. Then now you're set for the next year and a half of fights and big paychecks. It's all about extending your life as a pro entertainer.
Yeah.
Okay? The more paychecks you get, the better.
Yeah.
So extend your career by fighting these guys. Why not? And then you know what? If you do feel like you want to jump into that real boxing scene, then go for it. But I don't think he should right now.
Yeah.
It's entertaining.
No,
all
it's
those fights we just
entertaining.
mentioned are very entertaining.
Very entertaining.
He could also lose those fights,
He could.
which makes it even more entertaining. So I think his next 3 fights should be those fights. And if he does that, I'm going to take credit for it.
There you go. You heard it here first. Well, maybe not first, but you've heard it here.
It better be first.
Okay.
If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah. Second place is the first loser.
Hell, Ricky, that don't even make sense. You can be second.
You can be
third.
Okay, Weekend Trav. So that seems to be it on the boxing agenda, really.
Yeah, when you have a blockbuster fight like a Canelo Alvarez versus a Triple G, nothing else really matters. And you're actually pretty dumb if you want to go up against those
promoters.
rings.
Clear the calendar, please.
They do.
Yeah, clear
If
it.
anything's going to happen, they're going to do some stuff the night before, possibly like on a ESPN Plus card or something like that. They probably already
Friday,
have that
yeah.
scheduled,
Yeah.
and they will. They'll capture that audience on the Friday because they're waiting for the Canelo fight. But other than that, if you're fighting Saturday night, September 17th,
Or something overseas. And
you're not getting watched.
On that side of the pond.
unless you're fighting at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Yeah.
otherwise you're not getting watched. He is the cash cow of he's the cash cow of combat sports.
Rightfully so.
Period.
Yeah.
Canelo Alvarez, hands down, makes more money, even than heavyweights, makes more money than any boxer, any combat sports, brings in the ratings, sells the pay-per-views more than UFC, more than bare knuckle, even all of those. Canelo's the cash cow right now, and he deserves that because he's earned it by fighting tough fights. And now he's squaring off again at another fight that is an extremely tough fight that he really could have been like, oh, you know what, I beat you, I don't need to fight you. But he's fighting him again, so good for him.
Yeah. Good legacy fight. Weekend Trav, final thoughts.
That's it, and I think you're right. What you just said, this is a legacy fight. Those fights turn out to be a lot on the line, not a belt, not the money. At this point, Canelo's made so much money that's not the money. Obviously, he loves it still, clearly, but it's legacy. That makes for a really, really interesting, gritty, just like get down and dirty dog fight. And that's what we want to see. And I think the fans want to see that. And I think you're in for a really good fight because Canelo's going to try to bring it to Triple G. He is. So I think that when boxers fight for legacy, and literally he's leaving a legacy now. He's 32 years old. I could say that he's at his peak still, probably, you could say that, but he's more towards the end of his career.
Sure.
He's closer towards the end than he was at the beginning, okay? So, and he easily could retire in the next couple of years. So if you get a chance to watch Canelo right now, watch him because he might not be around much longer.
Do it.
And this fight will 100% deliver.
Yeah.
The first two did, this one will too.
I mean, if you think about it, talk about to old school fans of boxing, old school people. They're like, man, yeah, we saw Ali. Or, even as we were growing up, we saw, you mentioned a couple names earlier, but even like the likes of a Tyson, like all these exciting
Roy
fights.
Jones Jr.,
Roy
Mike
Jones
Tyson,
Jr.,
Floyd Mayweather, we were around that.
De La Hoya, all these guys. I mean, this is one of those, if you had a Mount Rushmore of guys, Canelo's one of the faces on that.
He's probably going to be on there, yeah. He's got to win these fights still. He's got to win these fights still.
He's got to win this
Hall
fight.
of Fame career, bar none.
But to me, the way I see it, most of the pressure on that fight is on him. So I
agree.
Final thought on my side is, you know what? We have a lot of fun here on the show. We talk about, this is 69% of the way through the year, blah, 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 blah. This, to me, Weekend Travel is one of the best times of year because pro football is back. As you know, I love pro football. But it's also, today is a date that I think just kind of got lost in the shuffle as time has worn on. So we're filming this on Sunday, which happens to be September 11th. And as many of our listeners know, and hopefully, and if you were alive, because some people think about it.
I know.
They weren't even alive at this point. September
kids,
11th, 2001 was, the date.
21 years ago.
21 years ago, basically the terrorist attack on New York City and the Twin Towers, which are no longer there, and all sorts of stuff. Just a crazy, crazy event. And so for me, this date is always special, not for great reasons, but the fact that I like to reflect and remember not all the negativity, but also from our country and our nation and our people groups, how something so horrible brought us all together for a season. And I hate the fact that tragedy is what tends to bind us all together in that sort of a fashion. And hopefully that doesn't take something like that again to be the case. But those were days where, I really wish we can go back to as a society, where love for your neighbor and for each other and yourself and for the common man, and just, which was all bred off of such a horrific situation of September 11th. So that is today. This drops on Wednesday, so that'll be already in the memory banks. But I don't forget Weekend Trav. I remember. I reflect.
I think you're right. I remember that time frame, and I remember we had a Republican president, George Bush, but that was the time I remember when politics didn't matter. It was, everybody was just like, I'm literally getting goosebumps talking about that, but everybody was like, we're banding together now. Our country essentially got attacked. So everybody was like, you know what? It's us versus them now. It's not Democrats versus Republicans. It's us Americans versus whoever knocked these powers down.
And listen, and we could talk to anybody on different sides of the aisle and things like that. There were a lot of bad things that were the result of that event politically and government-wise, and things that we did as a nation afterwards that I don't agree with, even as a Republican, various warfares, things like that, privacy issues. But ultimately, when you get back to the heart of the matter, it was our nation, our fellow man, our neighbors under attack, and it was the nation and even a lot of the globe rallying to each other. And you know what? My prayer for humanity is that we see that again, but not as a result of something so devastating. And this is something I think we need. That's my final thought. Sign my name on it.
God bless, man.
All right. So thank you once again to our subscriber base. Thank you to IF Enterprises and to TH Boxing and Goldstream Financial to being our media partners. And if you've yet to subscribe or like the content below, please do consider it on YouTube, Rumble. If you're listening to us on the audio sources, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, all that stuff, we are out there. We appreciate the feedback and support. Follow our Instagram page, Facebook, Weighing In with Travis Hartman. You can find us. And that is that. Did I miss anything?
You got it all.
I got it all. That over there is Weekend Trav.
That there is B Money, a.k.a. producer, a.k.a. the pretty man.
I like it. God bless.